you very much to the panel on youth empowerment and through quality education and skill development. Now we would have the next session immediately after this. We are not having any break, which was earlier planned 5-minute break, because we are running just 5 minutes, overshooting our time. So I would request now Mr. Hemendra Mathur, who is an IIM Ahmedabad alumnus and banking professional with over 24 plus years experience in venture capital, private equity, management consulting, and investment banking in India, South Asia, Europe, and USA. Mr. Mathur is currently founder of Think AG, and he would certainly which is India's first food and agtech platform, bringing together innovators, corporates, investors, and other stakeholders. And he's actually transforming India's food and agriculture landscape. So over to Mr. Hemendra Mathur now to take the chair and invite the other panelists. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Praveen. Thank you, Praveen. I'm not able to start my video for some reason. So
let me just check. I think just a moment.
Yeah, I can start now. It's done.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Thank you.
Okay, so just a moment. Just give me a second.
No, it started. It's working now. Okay, great. Shall we get started? You're waiting for Mr. A.K. Singh.
Hello.
Okay, great. So, good evening, everyone.
Good evening.
It's a pleasure to host this panel. The topic for the panel is agri reforms for upscaling growth. It's a very contextual topic given the fact that we have seen a plethora of agri reforms in last, I would say, 3 to 6 months, and which has a huge implication on how the agricultural sector will evolve in time to come, right? And I'm extremely fortunate and blessed to have a wonderful set of panelists with me to discuss this issue. And I'll just take a couple of minutes to make an introduction to all the panelists. So we have with us today Sanjeev Asthana. He's the CEO for Ruchi Soya, with a significant experience in the food and agribusiness sector with companies like Reliance Retail, Cargill, Britannia, and of course he's recognized as a leader in food and agricultural sector, has more than 25 years of experience. He's also founder and managing partner of iFarm Venture Advisors and chairman of the National Skills Foundation of India. He works very closely at the policy level with the Government of India and international organizations. Welcome, Sanjeev, to the panel. Next is Mr. Kapil Dev. He's Executive Vice President and Head Business and Products at National Commodity and Derivatives Exchange Limited, NCDEX. He has been instrumental in launching new products and building new categories at the exchange. In a career spanning over 13 years, he has developed deep expertise in Indian commodity market, agribusinesses, and changing dynamics of agri-commodity trading. Kapil, very, very warm welcome to you to the panel. And last but not the least, Mr. A.K. Singh. He has about 4 decades of experience of branch banking and rural developmental banking. After initial few years in commercial banks, he joined NABARD in 1984 as grade A officer in its first batch. As CGM, he headed regional offices of NABARD in 2 large states, which is Rajasthan and UP. And he has wide experience in rural development banking in UP, Bihar, MP, Rajasthan, and Maharashtra. He has been deeply associated with microfinance, financial inclusion, institutional development, bank supervision, rural credit, and monitoring and development of farm sector. So this is the set of panelists that we have. Welcome to all of you. So before we get started with the panel discussion, let me just take 2 minutes to set the context before we get into the discussion. As we all know, agri reforms which happened in the recent past, including amendment of APMC Act, ECA Act, and Contract Farming Act. I think what essentially they have done is given a freedom to farmers to sell anytime, anywhere, at any price, right? And as you would know, that if you look at the entire food supply chain, there are typically between 5 to 8 intermediaries between farmer and the consumer, which not only reduces farmer share in consumer price, but also lead to significant wastage and food loss. Hopefully, with new reforms, we will see compression of the food supply chain, which will unlock value by creating more transparency and efficiency, which I guess is good for farmers as well as good for the end consumers, right? In addition, we also expect that this will spur multiple innovative business model from farm to fork. We are already witnessing hundreds of agtech startups trying to build post-harvest intervention, and I guess that number is going to go from few hundreds to few thousand in time to come. And once the robust market linkage is established, hopefully with the new reforms, I think it can also give fillip to post-harvest finance, right? And post-harvest infrastructure, which is need of the hour, including warehousing, processing, cold storages. So I think overall it seems a big step in the right direction. So let me just pause here and get a panelist into the discussion to throw light on all these issues. So I'll start with my first question to Sanjeev. Sanjeev, you have so much of experience in the whole food supply chain. Uh, how do you perceive the recent agri reforms? What kind of impact they are going to have on farmers as well as food supply chain in time to come?
So thank you, Hemendra, and very good context setting you've done. So two parts to the question in terms of the ag reforms as to what impact they're likely to have and how is it going to impact. So the first part is that, the agriculture as a business has continued for ages. So it is not that the business of agriculture was not happening, it was. But, it had limitations of all kinds. So what we witnessed over a period of time was that the farmers as suppliers and consumers as the users of the commodity as buyers, the price parity between them or the transparency, the way it should have operated, or even the efficiency part of it. So two things which were broadly missing. One is that India did not have the benefit of well invested supply chains. So we had infra created, we had some regulatory architecture in terms of the through the mandis it got operated, but really the value adding infrastructure, the efficiency what we could be brought in, the ease of running the business of supply chain for large number of companies. So if you look at over a period of time, a lot of large companies, mid-sized companies and small companies have got into the building up direct farm procurement model to connect to the customers, whether at a B2B level or even a B2C level. And the challenge they faced was that every time they would buy from the producers directly, the cost of procurement was way higher than what they would tend to when they buy from the mandi, and it was even cheaper when they bought it from the traders. So one of the issues which came up always was that even though you could procure good quality, but when it came to the final price parity, or at what cost you're procuring, what businesses have to sustain and run at a profit. So the difficulty was that every time you tended to build up direct farm procurement models, it tended to be very expensive, and with the result, the most of the large companies and mid-sized companies tended to avoid that. The second issue on top of that, which used to come in, was that the regulations at mandi. So it was either through an ordinance that you got the permission to procure directly, or there was certain state level regulation, but there was no continuity or certainty of the legal framework with companies could with certainty make investments in the agriculture supply chains or food supply chain, and build up a long-term business platform around that. And the third piece, which was an issue, was that how do you build up the the adjacencies to the supply chain? So issues like logistics, assaying facilities, farm gate infrastructure, and alongside, if you needed cold storages, how would they come in? And the problem was chicken and egg because the regulations were not clear, so infra would not come in. Because the infra would not come in, the regulations continued to remain what they were, so the cost of procurement was very high. The result was that we were stuck in a situation where 95% of the supply chains were either partially with the government, where the FCI and the government procurement was happening, or rest of it was in small hands. But there's nothing wrong, mind you. I'm not for a moment suggesting that mandi traders or brokers or otherwise are in any way not adding value. I think they're the ones who really filled in the gap and done phenomenal job. But the question is that could the regular mainstream capital, mainstream businesses, and other smaller players could participate in a more free way, that it becomes a competitive environment where the producers have a choice. So I'll cut short my answer right now because you need to ask questions with the other panelists. I think the reforms, what they've done is, they've given a certain degree of stability to the plans which companies can have around getting into the farm gate procurement models and build that up. B, it has given, the biggest issue is it has given the freedom to the farmers to negotiate other than the mandi structure. So mandis, my view is, will continue to be strong. They'll be thriving places because there is no parallel structure yet available to substitute them. But the producers have a choice. So tomorrow they could go to a large retailer, could go to a large company, could go to the APMC, could go to a small trader. And I think the moment producers get a choice, then it becomes a competitive environment for buyers to buy from them. And this was expectedly, I'm reasonably certain, will help in spurring the farm incomes, bring more efficiency to the marketplace, bring more transparency, and we will see a lot of capital investment which is going to go in. So I think certainly extremely beneficial, but we should not expect overnight results. It will take its own time, and I think we should be patient about it. The important part is that notwithstanding the challenges, from various quarters, I think we should stay the course, and it will result in very positive results for agriculture and food supply chain at both ends of the spectrum, consumers as well as the farmers.
Thanks, Sanjeev. I think this is very, very, very good start to the panel, I must say, with very incisive insights and a very balanced view, I must say. And I totally agree. I think with continuity in policy, we're going to see more capital investment, which is much needed at the point of procurement. And of course, giving choice to the farmer. I think no one is saying mandis are going to disappear, but I think farmers should have the choice. Is there any other industry in the world where you're forced to sell to a particular buyer, right? This is not how the businesses work. And farmer at the end of the day is an entrepreneur and a businessman, so we should definitely respect and give him the choice. And it could be mandi trader. That's all right. So thanks very much. I will move to Kapil. Kapil, we all know NCDEX. It's one of the most prominent and one of the most important commodity exchanges in the country. You played a very important role in building this platform for traders, for farmers, etc. And how do you see the agri reforms now, driving NCDEX to build interesting business models, or capture interesting opportunities which are available in the post-harvest supply chain? Over to you, Kapil.
Thank you, Hemant, and I would like to start these reforms. Actually, if we see past 6 months, the turbulent time which Indian ecosystem is facing and the entire globe is facing because of Corona, and the most talked of thing during this period was agri reforms which government has initiated. And if you look all these three agri reforms, these reforms are not something which has been initiated just to address the issues which has created by Corona, but these are some demand from the industry which were pending since last 20-30 years, till the time we are talking about, we have been talking about liberalization of economy. And I think these are the steps which at the right time government has initiated, and maybe we are in a right position to evaluate exactly at the point that these reforms, how they really helped during this time and how going forward these are going to help. So as an exchange where we focus mostly on the risk management and post-harvest activities, which includes storage, financing, and risk management, I would like to say that as a country, slowly and gradually in last 5-6 years, we have been moving, except oil seeds, from a short supply country to surplus country, right? Almost all the grains and pulses now we are self-sufficient, and in various commodities, government has to really pitch in and buy a huge quantity to ensure that farmers are getting right price and market is not flooded and they are not impacted by the lower prices. So this itself says that prices have remained volatile, and lot of government policies have a direct and indirect impact on the market. Till the time we were short supply, basically our requirement was looking toward the market, because we are short supply, the imports were happening continuously, and that's how we were managing our food security. But in the surplus situation, it becomes very difficult to the entire ecosystem, to the government, to ensure when they are working on a project ambitious like doubling farmer income, to become competitive in the international trade, and also to ensure the consumers are not impacted by the higher prices. And I think when we talk about all these 3 points, the important thing becomes that how transparent market is when we are doing price risk management and price discovery. So Indian agriculture has remained very stable. What Mr. Sanjeev has mentioned, that APMC has given a lot of support to the Indian agriculture marketing system, but the piece of competitiveness was something missing, and this will definitely plug in that gap which we have been seeing continuously, that this market is somehow closed. Private investment look or see it's a very typical and complex market, governed by the various kind of government policies. Just for an example, Essential Commodity Act has remained a very huge roadblock whenever we talk about the private investment into agri, or any kind of private trade participants coming in and start trading into agriculture commodities. So I think government is trying to give comfort and creating a lot of efficiency and transparency in this ecosystem. We as an exchange keeps on talking to the various value chain participants, and the kind of confidence now we are seeing among the various stakeholders is really encouraging. And these reforms are not only these 3 reforms, various other reforms. If you see whether government focus on electronic negotiable warehouse receipt, online trading, even the spot market, and most important, on ground warehouse infrastructure development, which they have been talking about. So I think all the pieces government is trying to get in place, and this definitely going to attract a lot of huge participation from the private segment and give support to the farmers in fair price discovery. Just for an example, if we look all the derivatives markets, all the developed economy have its own derivative market, which is very established. Unfortunately, in India, it's not up to that level, looking at the size of the physical commodities we produce. The financial player, which we say hedge fund or farmers or the traders, play an important role while futures prices are being discovered. In case of India, we haven't seen farmers coming and using these alternate market, using efficiently for price risk management and hedging their price risks, while every day they are facing a price uncertainty and volatility. And alternate markets like futures have not been discovered since long, and because of various multi pieces which were missing from this ecosystem. So I think this will bridge the gap. Apart from this, over and above, the focus government is pushing on FPO is going to be huge revolution the way agriculture commodities are being traded. So I think they, as per our experience, we have seen FPOs now coming to the futures market, using it very efficiently. When 5 years back we were talking about farmers trading futures market, the main thing was, no, it's not possible in Indian condition, that farmers are very small, they don't have that kind of understanding, knowledge, or access to the technology. But now with these developments, fortunately, we proudly can say that almost 300 FPOs are now actively engaged with NCDX and using futures market for their price risk management. So overall, I do see a turnaround in the way Indian agriculture commodities will be traded in the next 2, 3, 4 years on the basis of the initiative and reforms this government has initiated.
Thanks, Kapil. I totally agree. I think we need to improve not just private sector participation, but also farmers' participation and hopefully FPO's participation going forward in the exchanges, and so that the price discovery become more transparent and efficient. I think, and that can't happen unless we have multiple stakeholders coming together. So thanks very much for your views My next question is to Mr. Singh. Mr. Singh, you have so much of experience in banking, particularly on the rural side, and we know how important it is. The government has set a target of 15 lakh crores for priority sector financing in agriculture. We have a huge potential in post-harvest finance also. Unfortunately, we have not captured much of it so far. It's about $5 to $10 billion. It keeps on varying, and our output value is far higher than that. So I have two questions for you. One is, how do you see role of finance and refinance evolving after the reforms? And secondly, if you can also touch upon role of FPOs, how they are going to benefit from these reforms.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Mathur. If we have to reach the level of 5 trillion economy, US dollar, agriculture is very important. And if you see the perspective of agriculture, the growth rate during last year increased from 2.4% to 4%. And the share in the GVA is reducing. Now it is less than 15%, but still around 20 lakh crore, contribution is there to the GVA from the agriculture sector. And largest livelihoods engagement of the workforce that is there in the agriculture. Finance and refinance, in fact, we have to see already a lot of products are there existing from banking sides, and some more are needed in view of these recent agri reforms. If you see the finance part, the major portion is production credit, short-term seasonal agricultural operations, produce loan, and the short-term also for the other than seasonal agricultural operations, maybe for the working capital for various activities. Medium-term conversion loan that takes care when natural calamity takes place, and the investment credit, which ensures capital formation and asset creation in the agriculture sector, which ensures delivery of benefits over a long period of time. During 2019-20, around 13.68 lakh crore agriculture credit was provided in the country, and it tripled if you see during last one decade from 4.5 lakh crore to 13.68 lakh crore. And the share of the short term was around 60%, and the investment credit around 40%. Again, investment credit is very important, and during last 6-7 years, if you see, it has doubled from 21-22% to almost 40%. In order to ensure that adequate resources available with the banks, NABARD is a major refinancing agency in the agriculture sector. It provides refinance for both agriculture as well as allied activities. During last year, around short-term loan to the extent of 1 lakh crore was given to certain credit agencies, and around 78,000 crore as the investment credit. Various agencies are there, especially including commercial banks, public sector banks, private banks, regional banks, cooperative, both short-term as well as long-term structure, NBFC, small finance bank, MFIs. And there is some allocation by Government of India and RBI also to supplement these resources through STCRC, STRRB, and LTRCF, that is especially for the cooperative banks and the Grameen banks. As far as evolving situation is concerned for the finance and refinance both, if you see the informal credit is still very substantial. Though KCC has done a wonderful job during last 21-22 years, but still substantial size of the farmers are not yet covered. And even if they are covered, credit line is choked, they are not borrowing. So at the instance of NABARD, government has started a drive, and we are trying to cover and saturate all the farmers. Then the regional imbalances are there. If you see the finance, 45% coming to South India only, followed by 20% of Northern India. Then you see the Eastern India, Northeastern, and the Central, that is lagging behind. So much so, even the Western India, it has declined in last years. So that regional imbalance issues are to be effectively addressed by all stakeholders, and that for proper credit planning is required. If we have a target of 15 lakh crore agriculture credit for the current year, you see NABARD takes up a potential assessment exercise every year, right from the district level, and 700 plus districts are covered. And for the block, for various activities, sector, subsector, potential is assessed. And also it is indicated as to what credit agency can play what role. So around 35 lakh crore potential is assessed for the current year. And then largely it goes towards agriculture under priority sector. If you see the KCC, very innovative product, 7% loan is available to the farmers. And if they are making prompt payment, it is only 4%. There is a subsidy of 2% to the credit agencies from the government and 3% to the farmers for the prompt repayment. But we need to cover other activities also. Last year, 1.5 years back, besides seasonal agriculture operation, inland fisheries and dairies were also covered under KCC. But then there are a host of activities under agriculture and allied activities which need to be covered, and they need to be supported under KCC. Interest subvention is a good scheme, but then it needs fine tuning. There is a lot of delay, not to say of months, even years together. So either farmers are deprived or bankers are deprived. Bank money is stuck up to that extent. So they are losing the income on that. Medium-term conversion is a very game changer, which earlier times, if you see, whenever there is a natural calamity, short-term seasonal agriculture operation loan, that is the crop loan, being converted into medium-term conversion. So that credit line is clear, they can further borrow farmers. But over a period of time, there is complete disregard to this product. And not only natural calamities, even non-willful defaulters, for any reason, if they are unable to repay, they should be supported. That loan should be converted into medium-term conversion and giving time 3 years, 5 years, depending on the situation. Ultimately, what happens? There is an NPA, credit line is choked, and there is a demand for the debt waiver at a regular periodicity. So this MTC product has to be revived, and it is to be implemented. Under investment credit, again, you will see there is a diversification needed. Only certain subsector activities like farm mechanization or dairy development are getting support. But so many activities, including plantation, horticulture, floriculture, inland fisheries, storage, processing, value addition, polyhouses, they need to have adequate coverage. And that's why NABARD in its planning exercise indicate, but other stakeholders with the support of infrastructure being given by government and other agencies, that diversification is very important, because that creates asset creation and capital formation in agriculture. Some hybrid products in the finance is needed, including both short-term working capital as well as the investment credit, suiting to the various activities. Capital subsidy scheme is going on, supported by Government of India through NABARD. But then some fine tuning and more activities are to be needed that need to be revisited after this recent reform. Cooperative banks, which are playing very important role some 3-4 decades back, 90% crop loan coming from cooperative banks, but today their share is less than 10%. So they need to be strengthened. Some support by the government, Reserve Bank and NABARD and the state government that is required. And for refinance also, I think major lender like NABARD has to revisit its planning, and some eligibility norms are to be relaxed in view of the NBFC, MFIs. You see, recently after this pandemic, some working liquidity support was given, but then pandemic is continuing. That support has to continue for some more time, and eligibility norms are to be relaxed, so that if you see the growth from the NBFC and especially MFIs, and largely that loan is used for the agricultural activities. So they need more support. Their disbursement rate is higher than that of the banking sector. You talked about farmers producers organization also. See, 86% farmers is scattered over the entire country. They are from small farmers or the marginal farmers. And there it is proven fact they cannot access any market, any value chain on an individual basis. So some sort of aggregation is needed, and that is answer in terms of farmers producers organizations. Some 1 decade back, NABARD started its own this thing, supporting farmers producers organization. They set up a fund in the NABARD out of its own resource. And some over 2,000 farmers producers organizations were given support sanction, and over 1,000 already they have been registered under various legal frame. Seeing its importance and success, Government of India came out with a produce fund some time back and set up with the NABARD. And NABARD, under that also over 2,000 farmers producers organizations have been set up in 29 states. We all discuss so many issues relating to farmers. They are all being covered at the grassroots level under the farmers producers organizations, whether they are bargaining power or access market, achieving economy of the scale, linkages both backward as well as forward linkages, efficient uses of scarce resources, bulk purchase and supply of inputs, aggregation and marketing of the produce. Even many of them are undertaking value addition and processing activities also. If you see, initially it was very challenging. We had worked at the grassroots level, organizing the people, and you will find the board of directors who are there, they are farmers only. So unless and until there is somebody who anchors and who drives this thing, either through a CEO engaged from the market, or at least one of the farmers or director is capable to take it forward, they are not successful. They are finding a lot of difficulties. Procurement of farmers' produce, and also many APUs doing procurement of food grain under government-sponsored schemes under Kharif and Rabi season. Then custom hiring, that is being provided by farmers, and because if you see the rate, whether it is a tractor services or combine harvester, or seeder, it is difficult for farmers, especially marginal small farmer, to avail the service at the reasonable rate, cost effective, locally available. So APUs can play a very important role, and this has to expand towards allied sector. We have seen in the poultry and the dairy in the Uttar Pradesh also, wherever they are working well, they have benefited a lot to the farmers. Largely, they are covered under Companies Act around 70%, but then they are registered under Societies Act and Cooperative Societies Act also. Within last a few years, over 10 lakhs farmers are organized under Produce Fund only, supported by Government of India. And there are resource support agencies which are supporting poppies, producers organization, promoting institutions. NABARD had identified over 800, and in various states they are being supported. If you their data being digitized at the instance of NABARD, and you will find over 100 crore share capital in a very short period they have collected. And very heartening to know over 70% they come from the small farmer and marginal farmer category. Women are also more than 1/3. And good number, over 500 so far, they have been credit linked, either with the banks, and there is a dedicated subsidy, NAP Kisan, set up by the NABARD. They are also providing aid support to the farmers producers organization. More than 1.3 thousand, around 1,300 FPOs, they are market linked. They are providing this forward linkage support to the farmers, and many of them have procured dealership license for distribution of the inputs also. NABARD has developed an assessment tool, grading tool, so that you can find out what is the position, whether it is A rated, B rated, so that credit agencies are comfortable to provide support. And credit guarantee scheme has been brought by the government, by the NABARD, and Government of India has also agreed to start a credit guarantee scheme for the APO, so that collateral free loans are available and credit flow is substantially increased to the APOs. Last budget, you must have noticed, over 10,000 APOs are to be formed, and NABARD is playing a very important role in that as one of the implementing agencies. A lot of success stories are there, but then we need to organize the people, large scale publicity awareness that is to be done, involving all the stakeholders. APOs are the answer. If you ask me, I'm a practitioner at the grassroots level, at the village level, block level during last last 3-4 decades of my career. FPO is a real answer to bring rural prosperity, especially with respect to small farmer and marginal farmers.
Sure. No, that's a very, very holistic view. First, on the broadening of agri credit to multiple activities, elite sector in particular, I think that's a very good thought. And thanks for highlighting the role of FPOs in so much detail. That's a good success story. I hope we build upon it. I think it's just start of the journey. It's a very nascent ecosystem, and FPO needs a lot of support. So thanks very much, Mr. Singh. I'll go back to Sanjeev. Sanjeev, we all know agri reforms, are there, but it's not enough. We need multiple enablers for these agri reforms to succeed, or for us to derive maximum value out of this reform agenda. What, according to you, are top 2 or 3 key enablers which we should be building upon, or we should be thinking about for us to leverage the reform agenda that we have now?
So, Hemendra, I think this is an excellent question, and I have been talking quite regularly on webinars now for almost last 1 month since this thing has happened. And I'll take 2 examples. So, one is that the fact that the reforms have been announced, would they suddenly bring about a massive change at the ground level? My answer is a flat no. So clearly there is still a lot of enablers, and there are examples for that as well. So, if you look at Bihar, which does not have a APMC act for last several years, we have not seen any major, investments happening. We haven't seen any significant participation or infrastructure coming up. So large scale private sector participation has been the same as what it was. Kerala is the same story, that and 2 different examples altogether where no APMCs were there. Yet the fact is that agriculture pretty much remained same what it was, prior to sort of them freeing up APMCs. So to your question that would reforms alone drive the change? No, they will not. There is a lot of enablers which are required, which have to be taken up now. And the logic of this I derive is that ultimately the businesses tend to go, the private trade, the private capital, or the businesses will tend to go only if there is an opportunity for them to create value for themselves. There is a value for the stakeholders, and there is a partnership ecosystem which evolves and develops, so that nobody's working in isolation, but there's a whole ecosystem which evolves and develops around a business, or any business for that matter. So how do we get, so the at a policy level, at the business level, at a thought process level, I think the next round of discussion must happen is really around that this is done. And of course, there are controversies, and I'm sure we'll have Q&As. We will hear questions in terms of the protest, etc. There is a very good answer one has, but we will deal with that later. I think the next round of discourse and the narrative around the reforms which has to develop and quickly move forward now. How do we ensure that the reforms are successful? If they're laudable, if they're good, the worst thing what can happen is that these protests continue to occur. We wait for 3 months, 6 months, and or 1 year. The farmers feel that nothing substantive has happened on the ground. The private trade feels that the initial surge of excitement, basically goes down, and you find that it is pretty much business as usual. So really not much of interventions have happened. No dramatic changes happened. The farmers are not happy. And to that extent, I think the narrative or the discourse of the ag reforms now, that I would really urge people like yourself, who are participating and, building up an opinion, I think must start thinking through very clearly as to what truly must happen at the ground level to ride on top of the reforms, to build up on reforms which have happened, and what would change. Now to come to your specific questions as to truly what those enablers are. One, which is very clear, is that, the estates still have very dominant control over the farmers, over the fortunes of the mandis, the way it operates, law and order, cleaning up, whatever regulations there might be. I think the states have a very critical responsibility to ensure that the reforms find roots, they are supported, and they are enablers. So tomorrow, if some company wants to come, or mid-sized company wants to reach directly to the producers or even traders, The last thing what you want to hear is that there are massive ground level challenges and difficulties in how it is implemented. So one is the state has a critical role to play, and I'm talking with a great sense of responsibility, is around the provincial and the state governments, the local authorities, etc. There must be full support to that. The second issue, which is important, is that without infrastructure of some kind, we have very ramshackle infrastructure. So the fundamental, the challenge around the supply chain is that whatever you may do, funding or buying or reforms, etc., but if the basic cost of procurement, or what I call the supply chain cost, tends to be abnormally high, the desire of private trade to continue there for long term, and it's not about some large corporate, it's for anyone or everyone. If that cost is prohibitive, or it's highly inefficient, or doesn't make sense to be staying in for long term, then what we would find immediately is that people would tend to still go back to mandis and trade. Nothing wrong with that if they are the ones who are the most efficient, and maybe that's what the way it is structured to be, because really we have no ways we can decide sitting somewhere that the private trade buying directly from farmers is the most optimal solution. We don't know. The purpose was that can the producers get the max income, having the option as to where they wish to go? Can the consumers get at a lower price, and we can build an enabling infrastructure in the middle that it becomes successful? So the second part is that what do we do about infrastructure? And I'm not talking of expensive infrastructure in terms of cold storages or warehouses or whatever, but some sort of support, whether it's a viability gap funding, whether it's the cheaper bank credit, whether it is supporting FPOs more aggressively than perhaps is being done now. We have a lot of resources being given, but FPOs have their own sets of challenges. So anecdotally, certain successes around some 7,000-8,000 FPOs what we have in the country, 15,000 more will come. But if we have only 100 of them successful, but balance are still struggling to survive or go forward, then I think it certainly begs the question that what can be done about this aggregating models, what can be done with the FPOs, and likewise the smaller medium enterprises which are there. How do we support them? Both by providing them cheaper finance, by giving them a longer rope to be successful, by working through with them, that they're able to build up these sustainable business models, that they're successful. So I think second part is clearly looking at financial support, either in terms of grant subsidies, softer loans, longer tenures, but clearly giving them a great, very, very critically an opportunity that they're able to do, they are able to stay in there long term to be successful. And the third part is, which is very critical, is that how do you build up this whole infra at a very basic, which is viable infrastructure? Mind you, I'm not for a moment suggesting that we have these fancy warehouses or fancy cold stores, it will fail on day one, or silos or whatever. My suggestion is that we should really have a very great insight into what truly a local area needs, what crops are being grown, and if high value agriculture, which is around the horticulture and poultry and fisheries and medicinal plants or bamboo or whatever needs to be done at that level, or similarly in dairy, etc., what is the enabling infrastructure low cost, which brings in the efficiency, avoids the losses? And if that is not funded well, it's still not viable. How do we create a viability gap funding or some support that this comes up? What are the operating models of that? Don't leave it to the government to operate that, because typically government has been a good sort of creator of asset, but not been a good operator of the asset. So how do we find viable models with local entrepreneurs who could still take a loan, work it through, but really build up some sensible infrastructure, which would require a tremendous amount of local level planning, local thought process around the businesses, because you do know, all of us know that, the requirements in horticulture are very different from cereals, and cereals are very different from tobacco or, bamboo, for example. So really the way we got to structure, the devil is in details, to work through this. So one is the states have to come in good, B, the financial support in whatever forms or otherwise, which is long-term, which is supportive, but which is positive infusion of fund structures, that they remain viable. And the third piece is enabling infrastructure, whether it's in terms of the logistics, in terms of warehousing, but really which is suited to the ground level requirement of what is to be done. And then I'm reasonably confident that we will have a very thriving and vibrant, architecture emerging of lots of small traders and players, or the traditional, middlemen, as we used to call them, emerging as entrepreneurs in their own right, which are successfully connecting to the value chains. And then we will see that vibrancy, the job creation at the ground level. We can see the infrastructure coming up at the ground level. We can see proliferation of small entrepreneurs, mid-sized entrepreneurs, larger entrepreneurs. We can see a thriving infra coming in of the large companies. So, really the governments, both at the central and the state government, must start looking at this.
You've gone on mute.
Sorry, I got muted by the host.
Okay.
So I said that my last sentence was that till we have these enablers in place, and whether it's in agtech companies, you mentioned, the whole sort of growth in agtech, whatever, the ecosystem has to come in. Cargill alone or Reliance alone or Big Bazaar alone will not make that difference at all. Cannot make the difference. And agriculture by its very nature globally, even in the best of Western markets, which are highly consolidated, even in the US, that top 10 companies do not even control 10% of the market share. So really agriculture by its very nature globally is fragmented. Until we recognize that, the solution does not lie with large companies alone. Solution lies with that whole ecosystem or that framework or that enabling environment to come in. And the debate has to move. NABARDs of the world, or the central government, state government, financial institution, private equity funds, everyone has to really look at it from a different filters. And once we deploy that, we will find that this will take its firm roots, and then it cannot be reversed, really.
Oh, Sanjay, that's a fantastic answer to a somewhat difficult question. Thanks for it. I totally agree. I think state government still holds the key. They have to be participant in the process. I totally agree with you in terms of the infrastructure that we need to create, and it's not that we have to create large scale fancy infra. And I think that doesn't make sense. It never breaks even. And I think there are at least few examples on the ground which I have seen. For example, in micro warehousing, I've seen Ergos in Bihar, I've seen Arya Collateral in India, I've seen Apna Godam in Rajasthan, who done like 1,000 to 2,000 tons, which is typically not what large players do, and been successful. So I think there are some evidences that it's not that you invest in infra and you make losses. These are all private sector players funded by VCs. They can't afford to make losses, right? So I think that's one proof. On processing side also, there are startups like Earth Foods. I can think of Earth Foods is essentially in Andhra, Telangana, and Maharashtra, with 500 micro processing units operated by local entrepreneurs. And he ensured that they get the machine, they get the loan, and he ensured the offtake. I think that has worked beautifully. Because as far as technologies in Maharashtra, which has a proprietary dehydration technology, and has done a wonderful job giving dehydrators to farmers and buying back and doing secondary processing and selling to large condiment and FMCG players. So yeah, of course, very, very small in the context of the opportunity, but all I want to say that we have some evidences that such infra which has been created has made a difference to the lives of farmer. They are earning more. They've created value addition. They've made the supply chain much more robust, and of course, brought corporates also closer to the farms in some ways, as you were mentioning. So thanks very much, Sanjeev, for this answer. That leads me to the next question, which is to Kapil. Kapil, again, the same question which I posted for Sanjeev on what kind of enablers do you see for reforms to succeed? And if you can also touch upon this element of digitization, there's so much of talk that we need digitization across the value chain, and it's going to drive financing, it's going to drive a lot of efficiency. I'm sure NCDEX, being one of the leading players, would have looked at some of these digital tools. So if you have any views on this, I'll really appreciate you sharing that.
Yeah. Thank you, Hemendra. I would like to start with a question which I do see in a chat box that if private player can pay MSP plus some premium to the farmers, so farmer at least realizing MSP at that point of time. So the risk is on the price side is quite relevant in today's scenario when markets are volatile, and especially as I mentioned earlier that from a short supply country we are moving to a excess supply, and thanks to all the efforts and push by the government on the MSP side, on the productivity side, which has led to this scenario. But the question to be asked is that can we sustain that kind of scenario when we are sitting in a huge pile of excess grain, like in case of wheat, we are sitting on the 20 million ton grain and we are uncompetitive to the international market. We even can't export despite having that much of thing. And MSP definitely will keep on increasing because of various reasons we all know about. So यहाँ पर the question is that farmers के पास क्या option है, and as a risk management platform we are offering, we are always saying that farmers is exposed to every kind of risk, चाहे वो currency risk हो, geopolitical risk हो indirectly, या production related risk हो, weather related risk हो, and most important the price related risk है. और अभी भी जो भी protest हम देख रहे हैं, so that is mostly towards the price related risk की private companies का control हो जाएगा या फिर MSP गायब हो जाएगा. So it's more about the what farmers are going to realize after this thing. As an exchange, we have been focusing continuously that farmers जब डिसीजन लेता है कि कौन सा क्रॉप उसको लगाना चाहिए, उस टाइम पे उसको डिसाइड करना चाहिए, ना कि ये देख के कि आज के क्या प्राइस है या गवर्नमेंट की एमएसपी क्या है, ये देख के कि क्या प्राइस में आज लॉक कर सकता हूं. अगर आप इंटरनेशनल मार्केट की बात करेंगे, स्पेशली यूएस की जो एग्रीकल्चर में सबसे लीडिंग एक्सचेंज है सीबोट, बोर्ड ऑफ ट्रेड, 30-40% ऑफ ओपन इंटरेस्ट belongs to farmers. Of course, they are larger farmers, they are big farmers, they have thousands of hectares, but they use risk management tool very efficiently for the crop which they are growing, चाहे वो soybean हो, चाहे वो wheat हो, चाहे वो corn हो, and these are the most traded futures contract globally, and all leaded by the farmers. अगर आप आज की कंडीशन में, मैं एक पर्सपेक्टिव डालता हूं कि आज हम जब सोइंग टाइम रबी का चल रहा है और हम सरसों या चने की सोइंग किसान लोग कर रहे हैं, अगर मैं एनसीडीएक्स फ्यूचर्स की बात करूं फॉर ए रेफरेंस, तो सरसों का प्राइस अप्रैल सीजन का ट्रेड हो रहा है 5100 रुपीज अगेंस्ट द, विच इज मच हायर देन व्हाट एमएसपी गवर्नमेंट हैज डिक्लेयर्ड. सो देयर इज ए प्राइस, देयर इज ए फ्यूचर्स कॉन्ट्रैक्ट फॉर द अराइवल सीजन. नाउ द क्वेश्चन कम्स, हाउ फार्मर्स कैन रियली बेनिफिट. Is it advisable to the farmer that they should come forward, और जो 5100 का प्राइस या 5000 का प्राइस जो कि एमएसपी से ऊपर है उनको लेना चाहिए या नहीं लेना चाहिए, और लेना चाहिए तो किस तरीके से वो ले सकते हैं. तो हमारा फोकस ये है कि फार्मर्स को कहीं ना कहीं अभी जो ऑल्टरनेट मार्केट इंफ्रास्ट्रक्चर है या ऑल्टरनेट मार्केट मैकेनिज्म अपने प्राइस के लिए उसको यूज करना पड़ेगा, और एफपीओ आने से वो बहुत ईज होता चला जा रहा है और धीरे धीरे होता रहेगा. स्पेशली आई वुड लाइक टू मेंशन जो न्यू टूल्स अभी रिसेंट रेगुलेटरी अप्रूवल हमें मिला है और हमने लॉन्च किए, जैसे ऑप्शंस ऑन गुड्स है, जिसमें फार्मर एक प्रीमियम देके अपने प्राइस को लॉक कर सकता है, और जहां पे नीचे अगर प्राइस जाता है तो उसको वो लॉस जो है वो कंपनसेट हो जाता है मार्केट से, जबकि अगर ऊपर जाता है तो उसके पास चॉइस है कि वो मार्केट में जाके बेच सकता है. सो कहीं ना कहीं वो मार्केट ड्रिवन इंस्ट्रूमेंट की एक जरूरत है हमें. वी शुड एक्सप्लोर दैट मार्केट ड्रिवन इंस्ट्रूमेंट वेयर फार्मर कैन hedge themselves, एक minimum income at the time of sowing itself they can decide. So that will definitely help in crop management as well. And जो distribution of crop है जो हम देख रहे हैं, which is more skewed towards the MSP driven crop, चाहे वो wheat हो, paddy हो या फिर RM seed हो, it has to be distributed accordingly, and benefit of these kind of instruments should reach to every farmer where they can use it efficiently and use these tools as an insurance product to lock their prices and decrease their dependency to government and maybe to the private player. If I am myself eligible or capable to lock the prices, why should I look towards the market and someone to come and pay me the prices? Of course, prices will remain as per the demand supply, but I have used a tool where I have protected myself. So that is something which we have been pushing continuously. A lot of efforts has been done, and we have seen farmers, especially a state like Bihar, where infrastructure is not as good as there are in Rajasthan or MP, but farmers, with the help of resource institutes like Jivika, TechnoServe, or any other who are working closely, have started trading futures market. They are locking prices for their commodity 2-3 months in advance and delivering on exchange system. So I think that is something which is going to change the way price discovery by the farmers is happening, and dependency of farmers definitely going to reduce slowly and gradually from the traditional marketing practices and move towards the market-driven instrument, which is much more transparent and available at the right time. That is most important. So that is on the pricing side. And I think once we start doing that, this MSP discussion will subsidize drastically if farmers started realizing this. And of course, role of NABARD, role of all the stakeholders is going to be very important to educate these farmers. So that is on that. On the information side, I would say that the more the commercialization of agriculture happens, the decision making becomes more difficult for the farmers, and for that sense, the information availability at the right time and the right set of information become very important. So like in these agri reforms, the challenge comes to the farmer if they are not going to the mandi, that what is the right price. At least in mandi they have a price, but if I'm going to a buyer, what is the right price? So that information becomes crucial for me at this point of time to make a decision whether I should go to the mandi or I should go to a private player. And of course, this is only one information. Rest of the information related to weather, information related to financing, interest rate, international prices, currency impact becomes very important. And we as an exchange with various of our subsidiaries are trying to bridge that gap. So we have an online trading platform which keeps on publishing daily prices in various market, and live auctions prices are available there, so farmer can get that access. We are now generating ENWR through our repository, जहाँ पर farmer एक इलेक्ट्रॉनिक रिसिप्ट में कन्वर्ट कर सकते हैं अपने गुड्स को और उसको बेच भी सकते हैं, और इजी फाइनेंसिंग भी उसके थ्रू कर सकते हैं. एंड ऑफ कोर्स there are rest of the information available, but when we talk about the digital information, I think the important part is that at what time I am getting that information, and that is a little gap because farmers mostly remain the last one to receive the information on various aspects, and before that it reaches to various a segment, and then finally it reaches to farmer. So connecting farmer directly to the first level of information, your first hand information, is going to be very crucial. At least on the price side, we are giving that kind of facilities to the farmers that can directly have access to the live prices, what is being traded today, tomorrow, and for the next four futures month, all the stock position, all the mandi prices also we are updating and making farmers accessible to this information. We are also working closely with few weather companies where we have developed few indices which are based on weather, so farmers can track weather, how it is today, how it was last year, and the live performance of weather and daily rainfall can be tracked on that way. And on the last side, the AI, and I think is going to be very important, not only to the farmer, for rest of the market participants. And we have seen even the various government have started using AI tools to arrive on a various data point which helps them in policy making, whether it's arrival analysis, whether it's price analysis, average size of farmer. So I think that is something which is important, and all the stakeholders, if start working on that line with focus to providing right set of information to the farmer, I think that is going to be a good. These developments are going to be good for the farmers in long run.
थैंक यू कपिल. चैट बॉक्स में सुझाव आया कि हमें हिंदी में बोलना चाहिए, तो मैं कोशिश करूंगा कि जो बाकी हमारा डिस्कशन है हम उसको थोड़ा हिंदी में रखते हैं. नहीं कपिल, आपने बिल्कुल सही बोला कि फार्मर को प्राइस की जानकारी, उसको जो भी एडवाइजरी है उसकी जानकारी हम काफ़ी नई तकनीक के द्वारा पहुंचा सकते हैं. मोबाइल फ़ोन का उपयोग बढ़ रहा है और जो सरकार ने बोला है कि सभी 6 लाख गांवों में ब्रॉडबैंड पहुंचाने की जो एक उन्होंने निर्णय लिया है, आई थिंक वो बहुत ही बड़ा निर्णय है. मुझे लगता है कि उससे जो ग्रामीण क्षेत्रों में डेटा की अवेलेबिलिटी बहुत बढ़ेगी, और जो हम डिजिटल टूल बना रहे हैं सब मिलके, वो भी एक उनकी जो एक्सेस है वो फार्मर को बहुत बढ़ेगी. अपने आर्टिफिशियल इंटेलिजेंस की बात करी, AI टूल्स की बात करी, तो मैं बिल्कुल आपसे सहमत हूँ. अब हमारे पास ऐसे तकनीक आई है जिससे कि हम पता लगा सकते हैं, जैसे सैटेलाइट इमेजरी से, कि भाई फार्म का क्या एरिया है. आप ये भी पता लगा सकते हैं कि कौन सी किस खेत में कौन सी क्रॉप उग रही है, उसका भी पता आप लगाया जा सकता है, वहाँ जाए बिगर, राइट. तो ये बैंक वाले तो काफ़ी यूज़ कर रहे हैं ये वाली तकनीक. अपने ऑफिस में बैठ के आप देख रहे हैं कि ये फार्म एरिया है, ये क्रॉप उग रही है, तो उससे आप इनकम एस्टिमेट कर सकते हैं, उससे आप डिसाइड कर सकते हैं कि इस फार्मर को कितना लोन दिया जा सकता है। तो वो तकनीक का ऑलरेडी उपयोग हो रहा है, ऐसा नहीं कि हम अभी भी उसको बनाने में लगे हैं, वो कुछ हद तक उसका यूज भी हो रहा है। क्वालिटी असेइंग संजीव ने टच किया था कि भाई हमें क्वालिटी असेइंग का इंफ्रास्ट्रक्चर चाहिए, तो अब आ गई है कि आप मोबाइल से फोटो खींचिए और वो बता देगा कि आपके जो उसकी क्या क्वालिटी है, उसका साइज, शेप, कलर, और स्पेक्ट्रोमीटर्स आ रहे हैं जिससे कि आपको उसका अंदर का कंपोजिशन भी पता लग जाएगा कि कितना फैट है, कितना प्रोटीन है, कितने माइक्रोन्यूट्रिएंट्स हैं। तो ये सब जो आपने बताया वो बिल्कुल मैं आपसे सहमत हूँ कि इससे काफी बड़ा बदलाव आ सकता है कृषि क्षेत्र में। ऑफ कोर्स हमें इन सब तकनीक को फार्मर तक पहुंचाना होगा, और वहां पर मैं मिस्टर सिंह से पूछना चाहूंगा। मिस्टर सिंह, आपने गांवों में इतना समय व्यतीत किया है, और आपने देखा है कि एक्सटेंशन सर्विसेज कैसे दी जा रही हैं गांवों में। अधिकतर सरकार का और कृषि विद्यालय, विश्वविद्यालय, उनके पास ही ये सब रहा है। बट हमारे पास आज की डेट में हम देखें, पिछले 5 सालों में बहुत बड़ा बदलाव आया है, जो तकनीकें आ गई हैं, जो टूल्स आ गए हैं, और फॉर्चुनेटली मोबाइल फोन का उपयोग इतना बढ़ गया है। तो आपको क्या लगता है कि जो हमारे ये एक एक्सटेंशन सर्विसेज की एक व्यवस्था रही है, इसमें बदलाव लाना चाहिए, और वो लाएं तो हम इन नई तकनीकों को फार्मर तक हम कैसे पहुंचा सकते हैं, वो उनका अडॉप्शन कैसे बढ़ा सकते हैं?
वेल, आपका प्रश्न बड़ा ही रेलेवेंट है। अगर आप मुझसे पूछें तो मैं कहूंगा कि एक्सटेंशन सर्विसेज आर द मोस्ट इंपॉर्टेंट इंटरवेंशन एट द फार्मर लेवल। Your entire efforts with the credit intervention and non-credit support जो आप देते हैं, they cannot yield proper desired results unless extension services are there. Starting right from the sensitization of the farmers, उनको प्रशिक्षण देना, उनकी कैपेसिटी बिल्डिंग करना, जो इनोवेशंस हमारे रिसर्चेज हैं लैब टू लैंड ले जाने के लिए, और जब डिमॉन्स्ट्रेशन हम वहाँ करते हैं तो वो कन्विंस होते हैं। That is being done by various fertilizer agencies, by government department. There is a dedicated extension department of the government in addition to agriculture, and a very senior officer is heading at the district level. But then वो कहाँ तक functional है ये देखना है, जहाँ तक एग्रीकल्चर की बात है। और allied activities, आप एनिमल हस्बेंड्री ले लीजिए, सभी के लिए there are officials. So one is the government setup, other is the private sector. It differs from state to state. अगर आप यूपी में देखेंगे तो things are a little better as far as government. Earlier times when I was there in Bihar long back, private जो agencies थी, individuals थे, actually they were providing some support. तो हमें इन दोनों को देखना पड़ेगा कि केवल इनसे काम नहीं चलेगा। अगर आप मुझसे आज पूछें तो सभी we have to have a proper planning for a smaller geographical area. May it be block level, may it be district level. We have to find out beside within agriculture also, agriculture के बाहर भी जो हमारे allied sector है, क्या क्या कंसंट्रेशन है, क्लस्टर्स है वहां पे, और उसके लिए हमें वहां पे यूनिट सेटअप करनी पड़ेगी। इफ यू सी द रीजनल इम्बैलेंसेस आई टॉक, आपको ईस्टर्न, वेस्टर्न, नॉर्दर्न, सदर्न, बहुत से रीजनल इम्बैलेंसेस आपको देखने पड़ेंगे। कहीं पे स्टेट जहां बेटर है एक्सटेंशन सर्विसेज, अपने आप चीजें इंप्रूव होती है। अभी एफपीओ की बात हो रही थी कि 7,000 में से क्यों केवल कुछ 100 ही अच्छे काम कर रहे हैं। रीजन ये है कि एक वहां पे एंकर होना चाहिए, चाहे वो एंटरप्रेन्योर हो, फार्मर हो, सीईओ हो, या बोर्ड का डायरेक्टर हो। मेरा अपना अनुभव है, कम से कम सैकड़ों हमने एफपीओ विजिट किए हैं, वही उसको कैरी फॉरवर्ड करता है। तो इसलिए अगर रीजनल इम्बैलेंसेस को हम दूर करें और एडिक्वेट सर्विसेज वहां पे एक्सटेंशन किया जाए, तो अपने आप ही फार्मर जो है वो चार्ज होने लगेगा। एक एग्जांपल से मैं आपको बताना चाहूंगा इसको, कि अगर हम इनलैंड फिशरीज की बात करें, फिश द नॉर्थ इंडिया, स्पेशली मेजर स्टेट्स लाइक यूपी और बिहार, लार्ज वाटर बॉडीज आर देयर, running perennial rivers are there, reservoirs, lakes, ponds, pools. लेकिन fish consumption in the urban dwellings more than 50% being imported from different parts of the country. अभी कुछ पिछले सालों में इंटरवेंशंस हुए हैं, सपोर्ट दिया गया, उससे पोषण अब इम्प्रूव हो रही है। जैसे एक पेंगेसियस है, अभी तो आईएमसी करते थे, इंडियन मेजर क्रॉप्स, रोहू, कतला, नैन, अभी हम पेंगेसियस ला रहे हैं, लेकिन सीड्स नॉट एट ऑल अवेलेबल, इट कमिंग फ्रॉम वेस्ट बंगाल एंड मे बी फ्रॉम अक्रॉस द इंटरनेशनल बॉर्डर। तो उस पर हमें एक प्लानिंग करने की जरूरत है कि इस एक्टिविटीज के लिए अगर हमें 500 फिश फार्मर्स को डेवलप करना है, चाहे अपने पॉइंट में या लीज पॉइंट में, तो वहां पे हमें उनकी एंड टू एंड सोल्यूशन हैंड होल्डिंग शुरू में देना पड़ेगा। चाहे वो पॉन्ड का डेवलपमेंट हो, वाटर ट्रीटमेंट हो, या फीडिंग पैटर्न हो, हार्वेस्टिंग हो, कोल्ड चेन हो, स्टॉकिंग हो, मार्केटिंग हो, अगर ये हम डोर स्टेप पे प्रोवाइड करें पॉन्ड लेवल पे, तो फार्मर्स आर रेडी, इवन द स्मॉल फार्मर्स आर रेडी टू प्रोवाइड रीजनेबल सर्विस चार्जेस टू द एजेंसीज, चाहे वो पब्लिक सेक्टर से है चाहे प्राइवेट सेक्टर से है। तो स्मॉल ज्योग्राफी में एक्टिविटी वाइज एंड सब सेक्टर वाइज, ये मैं फील्ड एक्सपोजर की बात आपको बता रहा हूँ, हमें प्लान करना पड़ेगा, उसको एक्सटेंशन सर्विसेज दैट नीड टू बी इंटीग्रेटेड विद द फैसिलिटीज अवेलेबल एट द स्टेट एंड द नेशनल लेवल। तो एक्सटेंशन सर्विसेज को हमें डेवलप करके उसको इंटीग्रेट करना है, और साथ ही साथ एग्रीकल्चर एलाइड सेक्टर आर टू बी इंटीग्रेटेड एज फार एज एक्सटेंशन आर कंसर्न विद द ऑफ फार्म सेक्टर एक्टिविटीज, की जो लिंकेजेस हैं बैकवर्ड और फॉरवर्ड समहाउ दे इन्फ्लुएंस। और इसके लिए पब्लिक प्राइवेट पार्टनरशिप, जैसे हम लोगों ने 30 साल पहले आप देखे होंगे हाईवे की क्या पोजीशन थी और आज क्या हुआ है, कितना बदला हुआ है, तो उसमें मेरे ख्याल से पब्लिक प्राइवेट पार्टनरशिप को हमें एक मॉडल बना करके एक्सटेंशन सर्विसेज के लिए इसको स्टार्ट करना पड़ेगा। कुछ इनिशिएटिव्स लिए गए, चाहे आप किसान रेल की बात करें, कृषि उड़ान की बात करें, इंटीग्रेटेड फार्मिंग की बात करें, एंड मोर वेटेज टू द एलाइड सेक्टर की बात करें। अब देखिए 54-55% शेयर एग्रीकल्चर का है पूरी जीवीए में है, तो 30% इट्स कमिंग फ्रॉम द फिशरीज एंड एनिमल हस्बेंड्री एरियाज। तो इनको हमें एलाइड सेक्टर को ड्यू वेटेज देना है, और खास करके रिसेंट रिफॉर्म जो है एग्रीकल्चर के, उसमें एक्सटेंशन सर्विसेज आर गोइंग टू प्ले वेरी इंपॉर्टेंट रोल। उसकी बेनिफिट, जैसे अभी आपने कहा बिहार में बहुत दिनों से एपीएमसी नहीं है, क्या फर्क पड़ा? फर्क इसलिए नहीं पड़ा कि देयर आर समबडी टू टेक देम फॉरवर्ड। रामलाल स्मॉल मार्जिन फार्मर कैन नॉट मूव अहेड, चाहे जितना आप फैसिलिटीज दूर से दे दे, somebody has to be around and provide hand holding support. तो इसी तरह we need a proper planning and execution with support from all the stakeholders.
थैंक यू सिंह सर, बहुत अच्छा आपने सुझाव दिया है। और एलीट सेक्टर वाला जो आपने पॉइंट बोला है बहुत ज़्यादा इम्पोर्टेंट है। जो हम फार्मर की इनकम दुगनी करने की बात कर रहे हैं, मेरे ख्याल से तो एलीट सेक्टर के बिना होना मुश्किल है, क्योंकि वो बहुत बड़ा रोल है, चाहे पोल्ट्री हो गया, फिशरीज हो गया, एपी कल्चर हो गया, डेयरी तो है ही हमारे पास। तो अपने ये जो पॉइंट उठाया मैं इसी को आगे ले जाना चाहता हूँ। संजीव, माय नेक्स्ट क्वेश्चन इज टू यू। So there are 3-4 things which are happening together. One is we are seeing कि elite sector का role important हो रहा है. We are seeing कि जो है FPO ecosystem बनने लगा है. Reforms की हमने बात करी कि policy push आने लगा है. और जो last point जो अभी हम discuss कर रहे थे कि जो नई तकनीकें आ गई हैं कृषि क्षेत्र में, मतलब right from agri input side में कि कौन सा बीज डाला जाए, कौन सी खाद डाली जाए, उसको कैसे मॉनिटर किया जाए, उसको कैसे मैकेनाइज किया जाए, उसकी कैसे खरीदी की जाए, उसकी प्राइसेस कैसी बताई जाए, उसको पोस्ट हार्वेस्ट में कैसे प्रोसेस किया जाए। हमने पिछले 4-5 साल में काफ़ी ऐसी नई तकनीकें देखी हैं, और काफ़ी वो तकनीकें डिजिटल हैं, मतलब आज की डेट में डिजिटल हैं। तो संजीव, आपका क्या व्यू है कि ये जो नई टेक्नोलॉजीज आ रही हैं ये कितना बड़ा रोल प्ले करेंगी हमारे कृषि क्षेत्र को आगे ले जाने में?
हेमेंद्र, बहुत बहुत धन्यवाद। और मैं मनोज कुमार जी से माफ़ी चाहूँगा कि मैं पूरा वो था कि उनका मैंने भी देखा, एक उन्होंने रिमार्क किया था कि आप लोग क्यों नहीं बात कर रहे हिंदी में। ये मेरी गलती है, हम लोग खुद ही यूपी के हैं तो हम तो बहुत अच्छे से बात कर सकते हैं। तो मेरा इसमें 2 सुझाव हैं कि पहला चीज़ है कि तकनीकी जो प्रगति हुई है, जिस प्रकार से टेक्नोलॉजी का एक नए पैमाने पे बढ़ रही है आगे, और बहुत ही आगे बढ़ चुकी है। तो अब जैसे और जो टेक्नोलॉजी है वो दो केंद्र बिंदुओं पे चल रही है। पहला तो जो है डिजिटल टेक्नोलॉजी है, कि जिससे कि आपको क्या भाव चल रहे हैं, मार्केट में क्या चल रहा है, या आपको ये मौसम का क्या हाल है, या क्या चीज़ उगानी चाहिए, एक आपको स्मार्टफोन के अंतर्गत इंटरनेट के थ्रू या किसी भी माध्यम के थ्रू आपको वो बराबर एक जो समय पे सूचना मिलनी चाहिए, जो एक ये निर्णय लेने के लिए एक जो हमारे पास पूरा सूचना होनी चाहिए, उसके ऊपर पूरी एनालिसिस करके ये बहुत तेज़ी से फैलेगा। मेरे को एक बहुत ही दृढ़ विश्वास है कि जिस प्रकार से टेलीकॉम के क्षेत्र में तेज़ी से वो हुआ है, जिस प्रकार से सरकार ये ब्रॉडबैंड और वाईफाई का एक गांव-गांव में ले जाने का एक बहुत ही एक नियमित तरीके से आगे बढ़ रही है, जिस प्रकार से इसमें सेक्टर में निवेश हो रहा है सारे टेलीकॉम कंपनीज का, डिजिटल कंपनीज का, या सरकार, प्रदेश की सरकारें और वो सरकारें हैं, तो इससे मेरे को फर्म एक विश्वास है कि किसानों को, एफपीओस को, व्यापारियों को मंडी के क्षेत्र में, या इवन ऑक्शन प्लेटफॉर्म, कपिल जी यहाँ पे हैं एनसीडीएक्स से, जो कि फ्यूचर्स के व्यापार में ट्रेडिंग का एनसीडीएक्स कार्य करता है, कि कैसे एफपीओ जुड़ रहे हैं, किसान जुड़ सकते हैं। एक उसमें तो बिल्कुल एक बहुत ही अच्छे पैमाने पे, मैं बोलूँगा वृहद पैमाने पे, वो डिजिटल टेक्नोलॉजी आएगी और कृषि को में बहुत ही एक इम्पैक्ट हो सकता है। अभी आगे की तो मैंने बात भी नहीं किया, जैसे भी बात चल रही है ड्रोन से कि आप मैपिंग कर सकते हैं, कितना किस प्रकार से, अभी जैसे आप अगर बाहर अमेरिका जाएंगे या वहाँ पे आप कनाडा या यूरोप में जाएंगे, तो ड्रोन की तकनीक से ये भी बता रहे हैं कि आपको पता लग सकता है कि कब पेस्टिसाइड डालना है, कब फर्टिलाइजर डालना है, किस टाइम पे हार्वेस्ट करना है, पूरा चीज एक तरीके से निकल के आ जाती है। या ट्रैक्टर जो चल रहे हैं बिना ड्राइवर के, अपना ट्रैक्टर एक साथ 50 ट्रैक्टर चले जा रहा है, उसमें बोया भी जा रहा है, उसमें पूरा कटाई भी हो रही है, उसमें अनाज निकल के भी आ रहा है, बोरियां बन के अपने आप एक तरीके से खेतों में गिर रही हैं, वो आप बाद में ट्रैक्टर जाकर उठा लेगा बिना किसी आदमी के जाए, वो सिर्फ रिमोट सेंसिंग के थ्रू ये पूरा कार्य चल रहा है। वो इंडिया में आएगा, लेकिन मैं फिर भी दोबारा बोल रहा हूं कि हमारे देश में आते आते ये सारी चीजों का एक हिंदुस्तान के तरीके, हमारा क्या कॉन्टेक्स्ट है उसके लिए बहुत ही अति आवश्यक है कि अगर यूपी में एक प्रकार का हमारा जो खेती चल रही है, या मध्य प्रदेश में या राजस्थान में है, किस प्रकार की खेती हो रही है, उसमें किस प्रकार का रिक्वायरमेंट है, उसके हिसाब से ही आना चाहिए, ना कि अमेरिका में चल रहा है उसको यहाँ पे लगा दो, वहां पे चल रहा है उसको यहाँ पे लगा दो, वो बिल्कुल हमेशा फेल होने वाला है। तो ये एक हम लोग को ध्यान रखना पड़ेगा कि उसका हिंदुस्तान अपने परिप्रेक्ष्य में उसका चल सकता है कि नहीं, कितना वो मतलब एक तरीके से खर्चे के अनुसार अच्छे से चल सकता है। एक पहला वो आवश्यक हमारे को देखना पड़ेगा, और वो आएगा, वो धीरे धीरे जैसे जैसे कंपनी आ रही हैं, जैसे सरकार सपोर्ट कर रही है आईसीआर के माध्यम से, एग्रीकल्चर टेक्नोलॉजी के फंड से, आपका भी जो फंड है वो काफी इसमें निवेश करता है, तो मेरे को लगता है एक तो वो बढ़ेगा। दूसरा जो एक तकनीक में चेंज हो रहा है कि ये बायोटेक्नोलॉजी और जो ये एनिमल साइंसेज में या उसके साइंस में, जो हिंदुस्तान का अगर आप एग्रीकल्चर का जीडीपी का अगर ब्रेकअप देखेंगे, तो जो पुराना चला आ रहा था, जो कि सीरियल हम बोलते हैं, जिसमें गेहूं और चावल है या दलहन है या इवन तिलहन को डाल दीजिए, अब उसका प्रतिशत जो है कुल 25% रह गया, एक चौथाई। 75% जो है वो चला गया है डेयरी में, वो चला गया है फल सब्जी में, वो चला गया है आपके मेडिसिनल प्लांट्स में, हनी में, और ये पोल्ट्री में, मुर्गी पालन में चला गया है, वो मत्स्य विभाग में चला गया है, वो बिल्कुल 75% उसमें चला गया। और उसका एक बहुत बड़ा जो एक प्रकार से फायदा है, लाभ है, कि उसमें 75% मैं बोल रहा हूँ जो कि हाई वैल्यू एग्रीकल्चर है, उसका एक बहुत ही बड़ा एक हिंदुस्तान के लिए बड़ा रेलेवेंट है कि उसमें जो एक एम्प्लॉयमेंट का जनरेट करने का है वो 4 गुना ज्यादा है। तो अगर 1 एकड़ के लैंड में हम लोग जब ये गेहूं और चावल उगाते हैं, तो जितना हम लोग को मजदूरी करनी पड़ती है, किसान खुद करे या मजदूर को हायर करके कराता है, उससे 4 गुना ज्यादा जो है, अगर हम ये जो हाई वैल्यू एग्रीकल्चर के कार्य हैं उसमें एक एम्प्लॉयमेंट होता है। तो हमारे जो फार्म लेबर है, जो गाँव का इस समय यूथ है, या जो यूथ जाके काम करना चाहता है, एक उसके लिए बहुत बड़ा नौकरी का एक बड़ा वो बन सकता है। दूसरा ये है कि उसमें टेक्नोलॉजी का भी रिक्वायरमेंट बहुत ज्यादा है। तो जैसे उसमें नई तकनीक आ रही है, कैसे दूध का वो किया जाए, कैसे उसका टेस्टिंग किया जाए, कैसे नई तकनीकें आ रही हैं, कैसे डिजिटल टेक्नोलॉजी लिंक किया जाए, उसको कैसे जैसे फल सब्जी को का डिटेरिएशन जो होता है, जैसे एकदम से खराब हो जाता है, अगर उसमें पानी की मात्रा कम हो जाती है तो उसको कैसे प्रिवेंट किया जाए, उसमें बहुत ही जबरदस्त तरीके से चेंज आ सकता है। तो मेरा तो सरकार को जो नीति बनाने वाले हैं, जो फंडिंग एक संस्थाएं हैं, जिस प्रकार से नाबार्ड और कमर्शियल बैंक्स हैं, या जिस प्रकार से आप लोगों के एक प्राइवेट इक्विटी फंड्स जो हैं, या जो भी फाइनेंस या कंपनियों का भी नीति वो है, मेरा सिर्फ एक कहना है, जो कि मैं बराबर बोलता आ रहा हूं कई सालों से, कि एक तो क्षेत्र के हिसाब से, उस एरिया के हिसाब से, क्योंकि जो कृषि है वो लोकल होता है। अगर हम ये भूल गए कि जो हरदोई में चल सकता है, जो बाराबंकी में चल सकता है, जो शाहजहांपुर में चल सकता है, सीतापुर या लखीमपुर खीरी में चल सकता है, वो मदुरई और मैसूर और सूरत का जो है वो हम वहां से लाके यहाँ पे नहीं चला सकते। तो जो भी हम लोग इसका समाधान निकालें, जो भी हम नीतियां बनाएं, जो भी हम इन्वेस्टमेंट करें, एक हिसाब से उसको लोकल स्तर पे कितना उसका रेलेवेंस है, किस प्रकार से वो चल सकता है, जब तक हमारा उस पर ध्यान केंद्रित नहीं होगा ये वाली चीजें नहीं चलेंगी। तो मेरा सिर्फ ये कहना है कि पॉलिसी मेकर्स अगर सुन रहे हैं, या जब भी आपका ये वो की संस्था जब जाके पॉलिसी का रिकमेंडेशन करे कि किस प्रकार से, जैसे बाहर के देशों में होता है कि एक छोटे से प्रोजेक्ट बना लिया लोग, उन्होंने कहा कि उस मछली पालन में इस क्षेत्र में ये रिक्वायरमेंट, तो उसी के ऊपर पूरा काम चलता है। मेरा सिर्फ सरकार को एक सुझाव है, और नीति बनाने वालों को और फंडिंग वालों को, कि आप वो लोकल स्थिति को समझिए, उसके हिसाब से अपना कार्य को आगे बढ़ाइए, और उसके अराउंड नीतियां उगाइए, उसको बनाइए, उसके उसी तरीके से उसमें पैसा लगाइए, वहां पे निवेश करिए, तो आप देखेंगे कि एकदम तेजी से इसमें सक्सेस होने का चांस बढ़ेगा। और दूसरा किसान भाइयों से ये है कि कोई जबरदस्त कोई खर्चेली चीज नहीं है ये तो हम लोग को एक अपना खुद समझना पड़ता। जैसे स्किल डेवलपमेंट का आजकल बहुत एक वो चल रहा है, मेरा भी उसमें थोड़ा सा योगदान है कि जितना स्किल करेंगे, जितना सीखेंगे, हम लोग उतना आगे बढ़ सकते हैं। लेकिन बाजार में क्या चल रहा है, मार्केट को समझना बहुत ही आवश्यक है। एफपीओ जो हैं एक तरीके से नियोजित हो रहे हैं, एक तरीके से आगे बढ़ेंगे, तो उससे एक बहुत ही मतलब कृषि के बारे में मेरे को तो एक बहुत ही एक पॉजिटिव और बहुत अच्छा एक फीलिंग है कि आगे चल के बहुत अच्छा होने वाला है।
थैंक यू संजीव, बहुत ही अच्छा आपने एक पूरा ओवरव्यू दिया, वो बहुत ही सही है। और मैं बिल्कुल सहमत हूँ कि हमें जब भी नई तकनीक की बात करें तो हमें अपने किसान के बारे में सोचना चाहिए कि 15 करोड़ में से 12 करोड़ किसान वो हैं जिनके पास 2 हेक्टेयर से कम लैंड है, क्योंकि अमेरिका और ब्राजील वहाँ पर तो 100 हेक्टेयर की है। तो हमारी जो कृषि है वो छोटी कृषि है। तो जो हमारे स्टार्टअप्स भी हैं, मैं काफ़ी उनके साथ काम करता हूँ, करीब 600 स्टार्टअप काफ़ी एक्टिव हैं। तो मैं ये बोलना चाहूँगा कि उन्हें भी समझ है, उन्हें पता है कि हम कोई जो ड्रोन उड़ाना है तो 100 हेक्टेयर नहीं मिलेंगे, हमें ऐसा मॉडल बनाना पड़ेगा जिससे फार्मर साथ में आए और किसी तरह 100 हेक्टेयर अब पे आप उड़ा पाए। तो आई थिंक वो एक समझ है। और मैं भी काफी पॉजिटिव हूँ, मुझे लगता है हम 600 की स्टार्टअप या 6000 स्टार्टअप हो जाएंगे हमारे 10 साल में। आज की डेट में हमने एक स्टडी की थी कि भाई करीब 1.5 करोड़ फार्मर को इन नई तकनीकों का फायदा हुआ है। जो मेरा पूरा विश्वास है कि अगले 10 साल में 80-90% तो हमारा इन पेनिट्रेशन होना चाहिए, और फार्मर के पास बहुत चॉइस होगी क्या लें क्या नहीं लें। जैसे आप सही बोल रहे हैं कि तकनीकी को जबरदस्ती थोड़ी लेना है, अल्टीमेटली मार्केट को देखना पड़ेगा। तकनीक से आपकी इनकम बढ़ रही है, आपके खर्चे कम हो रहे हैं, आपको फाइनेंसिंग मिल रही है, तो वो फायदे क्या हो रहे हैं, तभी तो आप फार्मर उसको पे करेगा। जो सब्सक्रिप्शन की बात करी सिंह साहब ने भी कि भाई सब्सक्रिप्शन देने को तैयार है, कब देगा, जब उसे लगेगा कि उसका 5 गुना फायदा होगा। तो वो सब चीजें हैं। तो अब हमारे पास सिर्फ 5 मिनट बचे हैं, तो मैं 2 क्वेश्चन ही ले पाऊंगा, जो कि एक तो चैट बॉक्स में और एक Q&A में आया है। पहला क्वेश्चन जो अरुण कुमार माथुर जी ने पूछा कि भाई रिफॉर्म इतने अच्छे हैं तो उसका इतना प्रोटेस्ट क्यों हो रहा है, क्या इसमें हमारी कहाँ पर कमी है जो कि हमें दूर करनी चाहिए। कोई भी ले सकता है क्वेश्चन। और दूसरा क्वेश्चन जो Q&A में पराग ने पूछा है कि जो नई तकनीकें हैं ये क्रॉप प्लानिंग में कैसे हेल्प कर सकती हैं, क्योंकि कई बार हमारे पास प्याज ज्यादा उग जाता है, कभी कम उग जाता है, कभी 2 रुपए किलो बिक जाता है, कभी 60 रुपए किलो बिक जाता है। तो क्या इन नई तकनीक से हम फार्मर को क्रॉप प्लानिंग में हेल्प कर सकते हैं नहीं। तो ये 2 क्वेश्चन है, इट्स ओपन टू ऑल द पैनलिस्ट, एनीवन कैन टेक इट अप।
ये पहला वाला अगर आप अलाउ करेंगे हेमंत जी, तो मैं 1 मिनट में, क्योंकि मुझे मालूम है कि सिर्फ 5 मिनट का समय है और मेरे को भी जाना है एक मीटिंग के लिए। तो पहला वाला प्रश्न ऐसा है कि देखिए, ये किसानों का एक प्रोटेस्ट है, और ना तो मैं सरकार में काम करता हूँ तो उनके बिहाफ पे नहीं बोल रहा हूँ, मैं इन जनरल बता रहा हूँ कि जो भी अल्टीमेटली पॉलिसी, जो भी नीति बनती है वो एक बना दी गई है, तो उससे नीति से हमको नहीं घबराना है। क्योंकि सरकार का जो मेरे हिसाब से जो सरकार का एक कमिटमेंट है कि हमको एमएसपी पे खरीदना और पीडीएस पे देना है, वो अपने देश में वो चेंज नहीं हो सकता, कोई भी सरकार नहीं चेंज कर पाएगी। इस कारणवश नहीं चेंज कर पाएगी कि हमारे देश की जो ज़रूरतें हैं एक बहुत भिन्न प्रकार की हैं। हमारे कोई देश पे अमेरिका नहीं बन सकता है। तो हमारे देश में जो जिस प्रकार से ये वितरण की प्रणाली है, जो कि पीडीएस हम लोग कहते हैं, और जिस प्रकार से ये खरीदने की एक वो बनी हुई है, हमारे पास कोई दूसरा चारा ही नहीं है बजाय किसानों से खरीदने का और दूसरों को, गरीब भाइयों को बांटने का। वो चेंज मेरे को नहीं लगता कि किसी भी सरकार का ना तो सोच हो सकती है, चाहे कुछ भी हो, वो कभी नहीं चेंज होगा। और ये आज का ये जो आज का डिस्कशन, ये आज का नहीं है, ये चल रहा है 20 साल से। कि कुछ भी हम उसकी बुराई कर लें, भलाई कर लें, अच्छा करते हैं, खराब करते हैं, लेकिन ये प्रणाली जो है कि हमको एक खरीदना है और जाके बेचना है। और इंसिडेंटली भारतवर्ष का ये जो पीडीएस का जो सिस्टम है, एमएसपी पे खरीदना और जाके बांटना, दुनिया की सबसे बड़ी योजना है एक ये खाद्य प्रदान को बांटने की उसमें इंडस्ट्री में, और उसमें ये गरीबों में ये जो 68 करोड़ बेनिफिशरीज को मिलता है, ऐसी योजना कहीं दुनिया में नहीं है। तो मेरे को नहीं लगता कि वो चेंज हो। दूसरा चीज मैं ये कहना चाहता हूँ अपने किसानों से या किसान भाइयों से कि हमारा एग्रीकल्चर बहुत आगे बढ़ चुका है। सरकार की जो खरीदी आज भी हो रही है वो कुल 15-18% होती है सरकार के जीडीपी का, तो जो एग्रीकल्चर के जीडीपी का। तो बाकी 90%, 85% जो पूरा खेती का जो एक जीडीपी होता है, वो तो अभी भी निजी क्षेत्र में ही जा रहा है। किसान मंडी के थ्रू जा रहा हो या लोकल कंजम्पशन हो रहा हो या छोटे ट्रेडरों को जो माध्यम से जा रहा हो या कहीं भी जा रहा हो, वो तो अभी भी बिल्कुल निजी क्षेत्र में है, उसी तरीके से चल रहा है और अच्छा चल रहा है। और तीसरा चीज जो है, जो मैंने अभी बात की थी, जो हमारा हाई वैल्यू एग्रीकल्चर है, हमारा फोकस हमारा जो सोचने का तरीका है, हमको उन सब चीजों से थोड़ा सा निकल के जाना, फोकस करना है जहां पे कि हमारी आय बढ़ सकती है। आय बढ़ेगी फल सब्जियों से, आय बढ़ेगी दूध से, आय बढ़ेगी मुर्गी पालन से, आय बढ़ेगी फिशरीज से, आय बढ़ेगी, बहुत सारे एक नए नए चीजें आती जा रही हैं, जहां पे मेरे को लगता है कि प्राइवेट सेक्टर और निजी क्षेत्र का और सरकार का बहुत ही अहम रोल है कि भाई आप ये वाला चीज है, इसके लिए हम आपको फंडिंग कर सकते हैं, इसके लिए कर सकते हैं, इसके लिए आप आगे बढ़ सकते हैं। तो ये वाले प्रोटेस्ट धीरे धीरे मेरे को लगता है जैसे जैसे समय निकलेगा वो खत्म हो जाएंगे। सरकारों का एक अपना तरीका होता है सोचने का, केंद्र की सरकारें और राज्य सरकारों का, उनका अपना एक अलग एजेंडा भी होता है, अलग तरीके से करते हैं। वो धीरे धीरे एक बार ये होगा तो सरकार का मेरे को लगता है कि मंडियां वैसे ही चलती रहेंगी, प्राइवेट क्षेत्र का ज्यादा इन्वेस्टमेंट होगा, और अल्टीमेटली ये सारा बेनिफिट जो है किसानों को भी जाएगा और कंज्यूमर्स को भी जाएगा। तो एक नया एक प्रणाली एक तरीके से आएगी, उसका फायदा सबको। कोई मंडी कहीं चली नहीं जा रही है, ना तो सरकार कहीं चली जा रही है, ना किसान कहीं चले जा रहे हैं, ये उसी तरीके से चलेगा, उससे बेहतर ही चलेगा। लेकिन वो इनेबलिंग कंडीशन की जो हमारी बात हुई थी, वो सारी चीजें होनी चाहिए, तभी ये एक तरीके से हम लोग फाइनल उस पर पहुंच पाएंगे।
संजीव, बहुत अच्छा उत्तर दिया आपने। हमारे पास समय की कमी है, तो मैं कपिल और मिस्टर सिंह से बोलूंगा 1-1 मिनट में अगर आप अपना पर्सपेक्टिव दे पाए लास्ट का, तो वो बहुत अच्छा होगा। उसके बाद हम क्लोज करेंगे।
Okay. Second question was about crop planning. कि कैसे हम उसको टेक्नोलॉजी और दूसरी चीजों को यूज कर सकते हैं। इनफैक्ट अगर आप देखिए क्रेडिट प्लानिंग एक्सरसाइज ऑलरेडी गोइंग ऑन विद द हेल्प ऑफ नाबार्ड, डिस्ट्रिक्ट लेवल, ब्लॉक लेवल, क्रेडिट एजेंसी वाइज, स्टेट लेवल वी प्रेजेंट विद थ्रू द स्टेट फोकस पेपर. What we need to do is NABARD and other important stakeholders, especially state government of India, and the market functionaries. We need to plan as to what is the requirement as on the date, various commodity wise, crop wise, and what is the emerging requirement, and what are the production locally, and what is the gap. इसके लिए हमें मॉडर्न टेक्नोलॉजी को यूज करते हुए, चाहे वो रिमोट सेंसिंग हो, एआई फैसिलिटीज हो, डाटा एनालिसिस हो, डिजिटाइजेशन ऑफ अगर डाटा हो, और उसके जरिए अगर हम गैप को आइडेंटिफाई कर सके तो उसके हिसाब से क्या यूपी में हो सकता है और क्या महाराष्ट्र में हो सकता है, वहाँ की लोकल सिनेरियो को देखते हुए, चाहे सॉइल कंडीशंस हो, इरिगेशन हो, क्लाइमेट हो, उसके हिसाब से अगर कई बार ये चीजें हो रही है, मिस एडवेंचर हो रहा है कि दूसरी चीजें हम दूसरी का प्रयास कर रहे हैं, जैसे अगर विंटर्स में आप पेगासस फिश करेंगे फेल हो जाएगी यहाँ पे, लेकिन आप वेस्ट बंगाल में करेंगे तो चलेगी। तो उस पर एक प्लानिंग की जरूरत है, उस पर एक डायरेक्शन की जरूरत है डिफरेंट क्रॉप्स के, और फिर हमारी एक्सटेंशन एजेंसी उसको आगे लेके जा सकती है।
Thank you, Singh sir. Kapil, last comments from you.
मैं बस इतना ही बोलना चाहूंगा कि जिस तरीके से जो भी रिफॉर्म्स हुए हैं और जो भी संजीव जी ने या सिंह सर ने बोला है, मार्केट लिंकेजेस गोइंग फॉरवर्ड बहुत स्ट्रांग होने जा रहे हैं, क्योंकि ये सिर्फ एक शुरुआत है। और लिंकेजेस सिर्फ फार्मर्स का लिंकेजेस बायर के साथ या जो बाकी के मार्केट पार्टिसिपेंट्स नहीं है, इस पूरे मार्केट लिंकेजेस में फाइनेंस का बहुत बड़ा रोल होने वाला है। और जो न्यू स्टार्टअप्स आ रहे हैं जो बाकी की फैसिलिटीज उस लिंकेज को डेवलप करने में, चाहे वो लॉजिस्टिक्स है, चाहे वो वेयर हाउसिंग है, ग्राउंड लेवल वेयर हाउसिंग है, या फिर एक क्रॉप प्लानिंग लिंकेजेस है जो कि प्राइसेस के साथ कहीं ना कहीं डायरेक्ट लिंक होते हैं। तो ये जो मार्केट लिंकेजेस है पोस्ट हार्वेस्ट मैनेजमेंट with these new changes are going to be a game changer for Indian agriculture, and hopefully in the next 2-3 years we will start seeing that farmers definitely getting easy finance. They are in much better position to trade and negotiate for their produce, of course, as an individual as well as a group, which FPC and FPO we are talking about. And those kind of negotiation definitely will bring a lot of new participation and interest for other financial instrument, private investment to come and be part of this agriculture growth of country.
थैंक यू कपिल, आपने बहुत ही अच्छा समराइज कर दिया है, मेरा जो काम था आपने कर दिया, तो मैं यहीं खत्म करता हूँ। और संजीव और मिस्टर सिंह, कपिल, आपको बहुत बहुत धन्यवाद। आपने बड़ा ही पेशेंटली और बड़े विस्तार से क्वेश्चंस का आंसर दिया। मेरे ख्याल से ऑडियंस को काफ़ी अच्छा सुनने को मिला, और ऑडियंस का भी बहुत बहुत धन्यवाद, उन्होंने बड़ा ध्यान से पेशेंटली सुना, बहुत अच्छे प्रश्न पूछे। और लास्ट में प्रवीण का, एवोक इंडिया टीम का बहुत बहुत शुक्रगुजार हैं, उन्होंने ये हमें मौका दिया, हमें बड़ा अच्छा लगा इसमें पार्ट लेने में। और थैंक यू वेरी मच। ओवर टू यू प्रवीण।
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thanks a lot. I think it's been a wonderful session. The kind of discussions which have happened, and also, it was an opportunity for us also to reach out to a lot of FPOs in the process. We really wanted them to be part of it. And as Sanjeev ji was saying, that a smartphone is a small thing which can connect them. And what we figured out of 150 FPOs in overall which tried to reach out, we found that a lot of them still don't have the smartphone also. So something like that. I think on technology front, how it can help, and there are a lot of companies, tech companies, a lot of startups also. So I hope that things should suddenly improve, and hopefully with these reforms, things should happen. So thanks a lot from Team Avok India. I think it's been a wonderful session. We look forward to meet again. Thank you, Sanjeev ji. Thank you, Kapil Dev ji. Namaskar, sir. Thank you. Thank you very much. Let's leave.